SavvyBusinessRadio.com, home to over 500,000 global listeners via our podcast and AM/FM platforms. We help business owners connect to successful individuals who share their gifts with the world. Get your message out in a bigger way with Savvy's live, professionally recorded shows. Find out more at SavvyBusinessRadio.com.
We have 3 awesome guests today. Dr. James Greenblatt, M.D., shares his latest book, Finally Focused, a breakthrough natural treatment plan for ADHD that restores attention, minimizes hyperactivity, and helps eliminate drug side effects. Find out more at finallyfocusedbook.com. Our second guest is Jacqueline Lawrence, a leading expert on infant colic and the founder of Colic.org, ColicCalm.com, and TummyCalm.com. Our third guest is J.J. McGuigan, alternative rock songwriter and guitarist. He is also the VH1 Save the Music finalist and mental health advocate. Find out more about JJ and listen to his music at jjmcguiganmusic.com. Hi, Dr. Greenblatt. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm very, very happy to have you. I'm excited to have you talk about a very interesting disorder. I've heard a lot of parents tell me how frustrated they are because we didn't grow up with this. I think I told you before the interview, when I was a kid, there was no such thing as ADHD. And so finally, now you've written a book, Finally Focused, the breakthrough natural treatment plan at ADHD that restores attention, minimizes hyperactivity, and helps eliminate drug side effects, which is awesome, by you, Dr. Greenblatt, and Bill Gottlieb. So before we go to all of that and get deeper into this subject, share with our audience a little bit about your background, what brought you to working with this specific niche and writing this book.
Well, I'm a board-certified child psychiatrist. I've been practicing almost 30 years. And when I came out of training and started practicing, parents were coming and to see us, and the only solution we had at the time for ADHD were medications. And I was seeing the limitations of medications, the side effects of medication, and I pursued during the last 28 years what I call integrative or alternative treatments. And over this time, and the reason I wrote the book at this point is now there's academic scientific research supporting all the nutritional and metabolic and environmental factors that might contribute to ADHD that need to get addressed.
Well, this couldn't have been a better time. I've had a number of friends dealing with other issues, some of them not ADHD, but other assorted issues, from rashes on their kid's body to maybe hyperactivity for some of them, other ones having to do with really severe asthma at a very young age. And it's becoming alarming with our children being sick, and this is just another thing. Now, mind you, I've heard this is not really a sickness per se or a disease. Explain exactly to the audience, what is ADHD?
Well, ADHD is the most common childhood disorder for mental health issues, and it's I like to call it more of a syndrome. There are symptoms of hyperactivity, inattention, that impair some aspect of the child's life, either school and or home, or socially due to the poor impulse control. The term. The medical profession has changed the name since, the early 1900s, and every 10 or 20 years we changed the name because we really didn't understand it. But I do think in the last 5 or 10 years we have an understanding of this illness, that it seems to be genetic and neurophysiologically based. I mean, there's a brain part of it that we can address with nutrition, environmental changes, and or medication.
Wow. This is intriguing to me because I had told you before the interview, I didn't think this existed before. As a child, I never heard the diagnoses, and that might be because it was called something different. Has this always existed, but in different forms, and maybe people just didn't identify it?
Well, whenever I give a talk, I always start with a poem, called Fidgety Phil. It was written in the 1800s by a German psychiatrist about a little boy who couldn't sit still on the table and running around, his parents yelling at him. So yes, it's always existed. It is diagnosed much more commonly in this country than any other country in the world. And this country is much more aggressive with medications than any other country in the world. So I think it's clear that the disorder has existed for a long time. I believe, and I think what you're sharing as well, it is becoming much more common because of both, I think, environmental and the foods that have evolved in our culture over the past 20, 30 years.
Yeah, and that's quite alarming. What have you seen in your experience has been some of the greatest components that might help bring this about in children?
In terms of contributing to the disorder?
Yes. Like maybe they didn't have it, but as they get older, they start to exhibit more symptoms. Is there any outside substance from the environment? Would it be just the foods they're eating? Would it be water? Would it be anything else? What have you found in your research?
Well, part of the reason we wrote the book is it could be all the above.
Wow.
So there are clear nutritional deficiencies. Common ones like iron deficiency is associated with ADHD, magnesium deficiency, and zinc deficiency. All things that pediatricians are not routinely testing for, but it's very important, and we've obviously found quite success testing and treating it. And then environmental factors, we heard a lot about, Flint, Michigan, and lead in the water. Lead is a major contributor to learning and developmental delays. But the probably more common for ADHD, which is also in the water, but less talked about, is copper.
I didn't know that.
Copper in the water and high copper contributes to ADHD. So we have this mix of both nutritional deficiencies, sometimes GI imbalances, and environmental factors. Wow.
So magnesium and iron, that is a mineral, I believe, and that's something the body does need in order to operate a certain balance, I would assume. Now, lead and copper, those are metals, right?
Right. Those are heavy metals that are essentially toxic. I mean, we need some copper. We don't need any lead. But all of our pipes, our old pipes, are copper pipes, and they're leached into the water. And there was a recent study in looking at Massachusetts schools. They were looking for lead, and they found high copper in a large number of schools here in Massachusetts. And that is also an environmental concern.
Wow. And did that, I would assume for children, because they're growing in all parts of their body, including their mind and neurology, but does it affect any other part of their biological systems besides their neurology, copper and lead?
Absolutely. But lead is kind of disabling to primarily the brain.
Whoa.
And we have developmental delays and very hard to treat aggression and ADHD. Copper is easier to treat because we can use nutritional supplements, but you also get allergies with copper. High copper, these kids tend to have lots of allergies.
Well, that could result in some of my friends having children with severe allergies. That could be something they could have tested, perhaps. Go to their local pediatrician and say, could you test for heavy metals, see if my child has that? Is there a way to draw that out from the body? Now, you said copper is easy to treat, lead not so much. Is there a way to remove it from the body?
Yes. I mean, there are treatments for both lead exposure as well as copper, and the copper is really essentially giving zinc. The trace mineral zinc decreases copper, and so zinc for a period of time will bring down the copper and help these kids, and that's what we've been doing for 27 years.
Wow. So for any parents out there who are considering, okay, does my kid have ADHD? I'm scared to have him labeled. I don't really want to bring him into a psychologist or a psychiatrist and have him labeled. What should they pay attention to realize that there could be a problem here and get it looked into?
I think the most important thing for a parent is to really get information from other people working with their child, the school, in particular, because I think we often have one parent seeing one thing, the other parent seeing something else, and there's usually kind of a fight as to what's going on. It's normal behavior. But when you get objective information from a teacher, your child is not able to sit in class, your child is interrupting, then you get a better sense there might be something to bring to a professional.
That's interesting. I've heard some of my friends who are parents say, well, my kid doesn't act like that. And they get really kind of tough with the teachers and administrators saying, well, you're just trying to label my child. That's not true. Do you have advice for parents to pay attention to that, you should listen to your teachers? There might be something there that could help your child because, hey, listen, if they're getting stuff into their system like heavy metals, which is definitely not good for their overall growth and well-being, what should they pay attention to, not only with the kids, but maybe at home to know that there's a serious problem here?
Yeah, well, I think one of the important parts, and we have a chapter in the book, is really listening to your child. Oftentimes we kind of just assume things about our children based on our observations, but most of our kids with ADHD that struggle with inattention and impulsivity, they're acutely aware of this, and they will share that with you. So really asking the questions, engaging your child and listening is really critical. In terms of some of the things that you can do at home, we know that sleep deprivation contributes to ADHD, so really monitoring sleep, minimizing these late night screens. So sleep is really critical. Exercise has been shown to help attention. Exercise, everything from yoga to aerobic exercise. And then diet. It's for years parents were complaining about dyes and additives, and the pediatricians said that, based on one study that it's not shown to be a problem. And new research has demonstrated there's a subset of kids that respond to these food additives and colored dyes.
And this just brought up something for me, hearing you speak about this. How many kids today are growing up completely on a tablet or some form of electronic device? I mean, I've even seen kids in restaurants as young as toddlers, and their parents just pass them over an iPad or something to shut them up. Could this also affect their brain physiology and play a part in this, perhaps?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because there's lots of research looking at it. And I think my summary of the research, I think it's pretty detrimental to the young brains, these 0 to 3-year-old kids that are on these tablets seem to struggle with inattention. I think as the kids get older, it's kind of a double-edged sword because in some ways it can provide some help focusing the kids, often rewards so they can get their homework done. So I think as much as some parents believe that all the screens are the problem, for many of the kids, it needs to be kind of integrated with a very kind of rational use. But clearly our kind of electronic life now contributes to short attention spans. We know that.
Yeah, and I think I could see from when I was a child in the 80s, we sat there and we watched video games and we played video games and we watched MTV, VH1. That was the beginning of it. And so that's, I think, when I started to get tuned in as a kid, you couldn't get me away from the television. That was it, and Atari. And now it's just replaced with our iPhones, smartphones, and all of that. It's become a little bit more intense. So I think that plays a part. And you said something also very interesting, which is exercise and diet. As a kid, I lived in the country, so we were outside from sun up to sundown, and we were only coming in to eat in the evening. So, I mean, we were always moving. And I think the kids today often, especially in cities, are not able to move or not moving as much. And some of the electronics might be kind of helping to keep them away from the moving bit, getting out there and exercising, and then, of course, diet. Now, here's something interesting with diet is that when I look at diet, I didn't realize till recently when I started looking at labels how much of almost everything is full of preservatives and such. Where do parents even begin to pay attention? What is good for my child? What could be causing them damage, ADHD, or any other biological issues? How can parents know to shop safely for their children?
Sure, great question. I think one of the easiest things is to kind of, limit some of the refined sugar. I mean, we would like to say eliminate it completely, but it's kind of hard in our culture. But sugar depletes nutrients, B vitamins, and for some individuals can really exacerbate hyperactivity. And again, that subset of kids that respond to these food additives and food dyes, there's an organization called the Feingold Association, which just educates parents on these additives and dyes. And usually, the kids that you give the fruit drink with Hawaiian punch and they start either developing a rash or hyperactive, you just know you need to start staying away from these dyes and additives. The other thing that's not uncommon is food allergies. And that's typically where you would need to go to a pediatrician or clinician to get tested. So testing for food allergies, particularly for our young kids with ADHD, the 3 to 7-year-olds that are now being medicated, and then you would want to eliminate those foods that the child might be allergic to.
And you mentioned something else in the beginning of the interview that I found interesting, that you kind of went away from using drugs as much and looking for alternatives to treat ADHD and other disorders. Are the drugs helpful at all, or only in certain cases? What have you found?
No, the research, that we've had for 30 years is the medications are helpful in a large subset of kids, but they're just kind of Band-Aids. It's symptomatic relief. These are stimulants, essentially amphetamines, that are potentially abused and can be problems, and a big problem in college campuses where kids giving Adderall to other kids or selling them or taking them cramming for finals with all these ADHD meds. So there are problems with the meds, and at times we do need to use them, but some of the nutritional supplements that we discuss can minimize some of the side effects. Medications can cause sleep problems, appetite problems, and we're not really sure about the long-term effects of the medication.
Yeah. I'm a little curious, though, also, as their brains are developing as children, they're not like adults who, okay, your brain's set, your neurology set, so if you take medication, we can see the overall effect. As your child and your neurology and your biology is changing on a continuous basis, I don't know if we can really gauge ongoing how the medications are affecting them, if it could be positive or side effects we don't even know about yet.
Yes, our brains are neurotransmitters, the dopamine and serotonin, everyone's talking about it. These systems are developing till we're 20 to 25.
Whoa.
So medications as children can affect the development of these neurotransmitter systems, absolutely.
Wow. And your book, Finally Focused, also talked about a plus-minus plan. Tell the audience a little bit about it, and how does it work, and how long does it take to get going that you can actually apply it to your child's life?
Well, we came up with that plus-minus metaphor as a way of helping parents understand that there are certain things, in the environment that we might need to minus, so take away, and that would be the food dyes and the food additives and things someone's allergic to, and copper and lead, things we talked about. And then the plus would be adding those nutrients that are particularly helpful, with research that has demonstrated that. Magnesium being an important one, other kinds of supplements we talk about. So we just tried to make it a very easy way for parents to understand not every ADHD child is the same. And trying to take that individual approach. There are things they're going to add and some things they're going to minus.
That's interesting. In your practice, do you also do blood tests and such to get a stable start ground to see where this child stands as far as their physiology is concerned with anything that might be going through their system?
Yes. The core of my practice over the years, and that's how we came up with this, is testing every child that we see. So we're not making guesses. So we're looking at levels of copper, we're looking at levels of magnesium and food allergies and the essential fatty acids. So we kind of have this biological picture, and then the targeted individual treatment is the core focus of the practice.
Wow, this is fascinating. I had someone recently, right now I'm going through a detox program with a group of people, and what I was amazed to find out is a lot of the foods I've been buying are missing a lot of major nutrients. I've never really paid attention about buying organic fruits or vegetables because you just see them there. They look the same as the non-organic, so I'll just get the cheaper version. But I've been hearing I've been hearing more and more from people in the nutrition arena, or even farmers, that really the ground is being affected by what we're using to plant and the pesticides and such. And so a lot of the minerals that used to exist in high quantities in a lot of our products and food no longer exist as they once did. So is there anything parents can do to help that? I mean, maybe find a local farm. What would you suggest?
Well, we actually have good research. Some of the kids that worked on farms, they were studied levels of pesticides in children's blood was correlated with ADHD. So we know that the pesticides do contribute to kind of behavioral problems with kids. So whenever you can buy organic or foods that are healthier and better, then it would be best for your children and your family. We do have research to support that.
Yeah, it's really cool. My friend who lives in the West started to grow her vegetables in the back and fruits, a varying small amount, but she has a small family of 4. And it's nice that they're able to, a lot of the time, have really fresh vegetables in great quantities in the back that they even share with their neighbors. And I guess anyone out there who has children or a family, you can get started with growing your very own garden if possible, if you do have that capacity in the backyard or wherever in your house, that you can start having healthy vegetables. You don't even have to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, no, it's important.
So before we end out here, I don't want anyone to leave without finding out more about you, your practice, how they can get your book, and come see you guys and perhaps work with you if they need to. How might they do that?
Well, the book is called Finally Focused, and the webpage is finallyfocusedbook.com, and it describes the book and our practice and seminars and lectures, and we teach professionals, and we work with parents on trying to look at integrative medicine for all of mental illness, but ADHD in particular.
Yes. Well, I'm very grateful that you and many others are out there trying to find a solution for kids, because we want them to grow up to be healthy, happy adults that can be thriving in the world. So I just want to thank you again for coming to share this valuable information, Dr. Greenblatt. Thank you again for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Here's our interview with Jacqueline Lawrence, expert on infant colic and the founder of colic.org.
Hi, Jacqueline. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you?
Great, Christine. Thank you for having me.
I'm so super excited to have you. When Laura, our good buddy, contacted me and told me the wonderful work you're doing to help mothers out there and families of children going through colic, I was like, oh my gosh, where were you when I was taking care of my little brother and sister? Parents divorced. I would watch my little brother and sister, and they were infants, and they did a lot of screaming. I remember I was 13, I was 14, and they were just born, and they would cry through the night, and I would get no sleep, and I didn't know what to do, and I know a lot of parents relate. So I know you're going to be able to help them today, but before we go with all of that, share with our audience a little bit about your backstory and what brought you to doing this work.
Oh, I'd love to share, Christine. Well, it's very interesting. It just goes to prove that necessity truly is the mother of invention. It all happened for me, this major career change, 13 years ago. After many years of teaching all over the U.S. and in Europe and loving my career, I had my first child. And that was the game changer, to put it lightly. I certainly envisioned my maternity leave would be idyllic, and it was for about a week. I had one full week. And then my baby's inconsolable crying began, and that was certainly not a part of my dream. It was actually more like boot camp. And it was really rough. He was not able to sleep any longer than 20 minutes at a stretch. So I would just be, decompressing myself, dozing off for much needed sleep. And then he would wake up screaming in what sounded to me like, utter agony. So as a first-time mother, I really had no idea what was happening until our pediatrician diagnosed him with this quote-unquote colic. And he said, the good news is that eventually he's going to outgrow it. It may take a few months. A few months?
No.
And he said, you've got 2 options that I know about in all my years of expertise. You're either going to have to wait it out, or the only other thing that he thought might help was prescription drugs. He said, not for colic, but more for reflux. And I remember running back home like, whoa, my world was spinning. I was scouring the web, going to the internet, like there must be something out here somewhere that somebody's thought of that's going to, save us basically.
Mm-hmm.
And in every moment I would just learn about this quote unquote, dreaded colic, and what to do, about it without, in our case, without resorting to drugs, because that just wasn't an option for me, certainly early on. I just needed to know more and fast.
Mm.
Right. So, you can imagine most of my friends stopped coming by more and more.
Oh.
I mean, I was sleep deprived. We couldn't even talk, crying over the crying.
Mm.
And the visits just, were not pleasant. So, and I couldn't blame them because they wanted to help. They just really didn't know how. I didn't know how to help myself or my baby.
Mm-hmm.
How are they to know? So, yeah, so you can imagine like my feelings of frustration and helplessness.
Mm.
I really wanted to be that, fabulous mom. And it was tough. It was tough. So thank goodness one of my very dearest friends, Dee, she stuck by us, and she was older, and she would come while my husband was at work. And in that precious time, I used it. I really went on a mission to end our suffering.
Mm.
We tried literally, systematically everything that was, talked about on the web. I spent a fortune because obviously that was, really important. And in this quest, and really exasperated when nothing at all worked.
Mm.
And Christine, I remember the exact moment. It was just one of those rare still ones when I was rocking my baby in the early morning. I was pondering, but just in a lighter way, like, why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting how, in those quiet moments, that's when we get these flashes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my aha moment. So I pulled on, as we often do, having lived in Europe, where homeopathy is widely used with great success, often as a gentle, natural first recourse, especially, for children and elderly. And I remembered that, wow, it had worked for my own digestive discomfort. So then I switched my focus to, what if I could find it on my own? I just planted that little seed, and I began researching. So my master's in education served me very well at that moment, and my networking skills did as well, of course.
Mm.
So I fortunately, I've had many connections over my lifetime to, integrative medicine. I've always been fascinated by it, allopathic, holistic, and I also have this contact, this wonderful homeopathic pharmacist, I guess you'd call it total serendipity, who provided a lot of support in our greatest time of need. And that's when the results came together. And I created a very unique formulation of 9 natural active ingredients. They're all age-old, very recognizable, things like aloe, chamomile, lemon balm, fennel, ginger. And it's the combination that was magical. I mean, it was really an answer to our prayers from the very first dose. When we live in a day and age of instant gratification, people are going to give things one try. And if they're not pretty amazing, they'll move on to the next thing. And this was it for us.
Wow.
So, Colic was born.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm so curious. Now, what have you, through all your research, because you've done a slew of research, what have you found is the general cause? There must be a cause of colic. What causes it?
It's so interesting because it's been my mission to shed a lot of light on this big, intimidating mystery. And experts really don't all agree on what colic is. It's defined as inconsolable crying for an unknown reason. Actually, Dr. Bill Sears, who I know quite well, says colic is a 5-letter word for I don't know. Which, doesn't make it any more comforting for parents when they're confronted with this all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So, there is a rule of 3, which, pediatricians use, and basically it says, if your child cries inconsolably for 3 hours a day, more than 3 days a week for a 3-week period or more, then it is this, collection of symptoms that are dubbed colic. Yeah, and it's pretty, my personal feeling is it's, after so many years immersed in this, is that the underlying cause is an immature digestive system and nervous system. So some babies come into the world, they're functioning beautifully from the very first time they digest food on their own, and others need more time to develop the coordination that it takes. So just as, some babies take longer to walk or talk.
Uh-huh.
So,
Wow.
yes.
It's very fascinating. Well, I happen to be born very premature. I was born 3 months early. My mom always laughs that I was so impatient because in life I always want things yesterday. So she's like, "You were like that as a baby in my tummy. You couldn't wait to get out."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we all come in differently on different tracks, and we're all unique and amazing. So, we have our gifts, and hopefully we bring it. And you're certainly bringing yours. So
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it was certainly, a silver lining to our ordeal.
yeah. Wow, that is just amazing. I know that a lot of parents listening in are like, okay, how do I get this, and what do I do to make this happen? What I'm really liking about what you're saying, though, is that it helped from the very first dose. And I know parents are like, I want to sleep. How do I get a hold of this stuff?
Oh, right. Yes, most of the time. No, nothing's perfect, but it is a tremendous, wonderful, natural first recourse. Mm-hmm. Yes, and we've helped 2 million babies already, and it's available at 20,000 locations in the U.S. And the great news, Christine, is that we've had interest for almost every country in the world. So we're expanding into 10 more countries, and hopefully this will be available. It's really my goal to make this available worldwide to all those that need it. To at least consider it as an option. Yeah. Because there are not very many. Yeah.
So can they go to your website, colic.org, and get it? Or is there any? Yeah, go on.
Right. Well, colicalm.com and tummycalm.com, which is actually our second product that came out to help older children as well. So if it's more colic, it would be Colic Calm. Okay. And if it's more, upset stomach, tummy aches, which are so common in children of all ages, that would be tummycalm.com. And we also, my recent labor of love is colic.org, which I'm so happy about because, like you say, where can somebody go instead of 3 a.m. trying to piece it together on the internet? Where can somebody go? I would have loved to have a resource like this. It's really just distilled down. It educates and empowers, and it shows in a very easy to understand, all research-based infographic style, big picture on colic. So that so parents can, really be led to what feels right for them. And again, I always encourage parents to, do their homework. Hopefully I've created an easy way to do that, and then make the right decision because they are their own baby's best advocates. Yes. So they will know instinctively, what makes sense to them. And hopefully, that's made easier by everything I've been through in hopes, that has been my goal. Creating happy, healthy, harmonious families. Yay. What a difference when you start out with peace and harmony versus, this disheveled panic. Again, my goal is to educate, empower parents so that they can make the best choices on behalf of their children, along with their pediatricians.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like that, working in tangent with your pediatrician and doctor, because I've heard some parents, we've had a parent come on last year who her child got very, very sick, and her pediatrician was kind of like, well, I'm the doctor and you just do what I say. And she had as a mother intuition. And there's this intuition, I think you would agree, that as a parent, sometimes you get these inklings. Now, you're not a doctor, you didn't go to medical school, but you'll have this inkling that something's wrong. You might not be able to put it in proper words or whatever, but you feel that something's just not right. And if your pediatrician or doctor is not willing to listen to you or work with you as a team member together, I'd say you just go look for the proper doctor that could be a great team member with you, because you don't want to overrun your doctor and come in with every symptom and thing you found on the internet. But at the same time, you want to be able to work as a team and be that great advocate and have your doctor work with you, not against you.
Absolutely. And the parent, a parent really needs to step up to the plate, find out as much information as possible so that they get all of their options. My thing is, you don't know you have options unless they're, in your awareness. So whatever feels right for you, again, connecting to a very powerful team, because we can't, know everything. So we want to collect the right pieces and then, reach out for support. Support is so that is really the key to everything. Yeah. Especially at a trying time like this. And that allows parents to, take a deep breath, know they're supported, and be more easily able to tap into what they instinctively know is going to be best for their baby or their child.
Parents I've talked to, Jacqueline, who just have a really deep understanding of their child. I think it's because you're really bonded at a deep soul level with your child.
Yes.
That
Yes.
you'll know that there's something wrong even if you don't see it on the surface. I mean, I've heard of parents saying, oh, we've gone to the doctor and the tests say there's nothing wrong, but I know there's something wrong. And so what you say before about really being your child's best advocate, doing your research, just not taking the first word that, maybe a doctor might say and just looking for yet another doctor to look into it and give you more information so that you can all make the informed decision and help your child.
So true, and I've just been amazed at how welcoming. We have thousands and thousands of pediatricians, family doctors, nurses, midwives, lactation consultants, even pharmacists that have all come together because, colic has been so intimidating and so mysterious. So when they found, great feedback from their own patients, oftentimes the patients will bring this into their awareness. But we do really do everything we can to let people know that this is an option, a great option for them to look into. And the reception we've received is phenomenal because you can imagine how hard it must be for all of these healthcare professionals to, hear parents and not know what to offer.
Yeah.
So it really is a win-win-win.
Oh, absolutely. Is there anything you would tell a first-time parent, say their baby's in their womb and they're getting ready and they're super excited like you were? Any advice you can give them to maybe help in the transition to becoming a new mom?
Well, that's a brilliant question. The most important thing is that connection and that bond that's being created while baby is developing in the womb and certainly right after when they need you the very most. And you need them. Again, that is just really the basis of everything. So to try as much as possible to put everything in perspective and say, this is my top priority. When mom is panicked, then of course baby's going to feel that. Mom's stressed, baby's going to feel that. So they're a unit, and dad is there hopefully to support as well. And then we've got family, we've got friends, we've got community, and of course the team of healthcare professionals that can come into play as needed. So really just focusing and saying, this is what matters. These few months are so precious and important, and starting them with, peace, happiness, harmony, anything mom can do to really heighten that, because this is the time, and not months, certainly not months to be wished away.
So there's one guest that came in last year, and he was saying about working and having a more productive work day is to add music. And I would gather that maybe even peaceful music added into your baby's life or room when you're not there might even help as well.
Absolutely. There's so many wonderful things that one can use. Whatever works, for mom to relax anyway would be a great starting point. Massage, aromatherapy, baby massage too, of course.
Ooh, nice.
There are also places that offer mom and baby massage, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yes, like white noise, you just have to figure out the right music. And it's a bit of trial and error, of course. But lovely baths, aromatherapy. There's some just really wonderful things that can be incorporated. Again, if the focus is on, health and well-being for mom and baby, and then again the supporting network, then wow, what a difference.
Wow.
That is ideal. That is the way to start.
Absolutely. Where do you see your business growing? Where do you see this all going?
Well, it's so interesting. Step by step, really, I just take it. I stay focused and persistent, just like I did with, setting up the best manufacturing and FDA listing. And then I found that, when it's meant to be, others will come in.
Yes.
It's important that I don't try to do it all, that I rely on others.
Good lesson.
In my college days, if they'll hang around me, they come in to support because they can feel the passion that I have for sharing this gift and the support. And colic.org, as I mentioned, is just such a phenomenal nutshell. You go there and you get the 101, and hopefully, and then of course there's tons more on colicalm.com. We have testimonials, we have videos, and then by topic. So if somebody wants to really focus in on something, let's say their pediatrician tells them they have hyperlactation syndrome, that can create colic for sure, then they can, pinpoint that area, read up on it, and hopefully they get the light bulb too.
What is that? Does that mean you have lactate intolerance, like for adults as well? Or?
Oh, well, hyperlactation syndrome is very interesting. It's like the foremilk versus the hind milk. So the foremilk, which is like the first part of breast milk that comes through, is very sweet and lighter. So the hind milk is the really rich and thick and not as sweet milk that comes in after. And so some moms will actually, if they're breastfeeding, they will have more production of initially. So there are different techniques that one can use, and working with a lactation consultant is so helpful. So finding, methods like maybe just one breast at a time, alternating so that baby is getting that not so sweet milk that's going to keep them more satisfied and not create perhaps as much digestive discomfort as they're digesting, because the process of a digestion alone creates gas. Along with, the air bubbles that can be swallowed if it's not comfortable.
Oh,
wow. So yeah, working with a lactation consultant, La Leche League is a great place to start, because typically with colic, it's right after they feed or at certain times of day when they can have these issues. A lot of it is having trouble digesting initially. So I think, again, working with a lactation consultant, even a postpartum doula can be very helpful. Knowing that you're supported, I think, is the key. So that you can calmly look through your options and say, you know what, this makes sense to me. I'm going to try that. Sometimes it's the magic bullet. Other times, it's pieces of the puzzle and figuring out just what's perfect for your baby, your particular baby.
I love that. And what you mentioned before, some business and it works, being a new mom, is not doing it alone. There's a community out there of wonderful moms and support system and healthcare providers that are here to help have to do it alone. And hey, if you say I don't have the money, you don't have to, because there's a lot of wonderful online resources like your resources there with Colic.com. Colic.org and coliccom.com
and Tummycom too for older kids as well.
I can't forget that either. And because there's a lot of kids who grew up with little tummy aches. Yes, thank you very much.
Yep. Hopefully the pieces will come together beautifully and they will feel supported, and again be able to focus on that connection with their baby and their family.
Yeah.
And it really stems from there. What a wonderful world it would be if we all started, in that way.
And it, that will allow for the baby to grow and develop in a way where we're all happy, as you say, and a happy family, a happy child. Awesome. This has been so fabulous having you out here today, sharing this very important information, which I know is going to help a lot of our listeners. I want to thank you again, Jacqueline, for coming to Savvy Radio.
Christine, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Here's our interview with musician and artist J.J. McGuigan, a mental health advocate.
Hi, JJ. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. I'm so happy to have you. Michael from MTS Management called me and told me about the wonderful work you're doing. You were featured as VH1 Save the Music Finalist, and you're also a mental health advocate, which is awesome. But you're going to share a little bit about your background, some of your wisdom in music. How did you get into the music industry in particular?
Well, when I was 13, basically I got my first drum set. Was playing in middle school bands and whatnot with some friends, and did a little bit of that in high school. Played sports all through school and all through college, and then really around age 22, 23, I had been playing guitar for a few years, and that's when I really decided to start writing songs. I had written lyrics my whole life, but never really wrote songs out of them, more like poetry, I guess. And so I always felt a calling to share that with people, and got good feedback. I was actually the first songwriting contest I entered was the VH1 Save the Music songwriting contest.
Wow.
And so that kind of gave me some confidence and whatnot to keep pursuing it and everything. So that's what I've been doing. It's just been a fun process, a learning process along the way, and trying to get as much of the music out there that I can.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the journey I'm on right now.
Wow. And has it always been, you think, a deep calling inside your heart to do this sort of work, to do the music that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It has. One of those things that I'm just kind of intertwined with. My whole being's kind of intertwined in that area and everything, and so it's something that, regardless of whatever success comes my way, or whatnot. It's something I'm going to always be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a part of me like that. So.
No, I get you. In fact, when I was in high school, grammar school, I should say, I decided to play music. And for me, it was because I was kind of always bullied in school. And so I thought it would be a way to kind of find a way that I could do something well, that people would find respect and I could earn people's approval. But you know what? That does not cut it, because when I entered into the job market and I was trying to do things with music or arts, my heart wasn't in it. And I think that's how you know when you're doing something you really should be doing on this planet, is when your heart is calling and it just flows. It's not something you have to, you have to work at it. There's effort, which I'm sure you would agree in doing it. But when your heart's in it, it's not like work. It's a pleasure to work. Yeah.
Definitely. It's one of those things that no matter how hard it gets, you always find a way to do it, just because it is that part of you that you're supposed to do. Yeah. And when you get to that age when you kind of need to, I guess in our society, earn a living or whatnot, you still got to honor what you're here to do and try and not just try and earn a living as a substitute, but just basically find a way to incorporate what you do into your daily life, basically, is kind of the key, I think. And hopefully that'll lead, I think, to greater happiness and,
and success. And success.
Else. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I find for me, I spent the first 40 years after high school, trying to meddle around in different arts and stuff like that, and it wasn't working. So I went straight to the corporate life thinking that would be the way I'd make good money and fortune and success, and it wasn't happening. And in my 40s, I finally found out about broadcasting, and it was like, bam, lightning. It was like, this is where I need to be. And it's great when you find that thing and you're like, oh, this is where I should be. It's great that you found it rather young for yourself. Now, what attracted you in particular to alternative rock? Because that's the genre you're kind of in, or do you like all music?
I do like all music. I think when I about got my first drum set, I got tuned into rock and roll. It was the mid-'90s, and that was a big era for rock, for me growing up and everything. And there was a band in particular called Live. Then they came out with Throwing Copper, which was a huge album in the 90s and whatnot, and that just turned me on to that type of sound. Just real emotional rock and roll that reaches people, and it's just stuck with me ever since. I appreciate all different types of music, and if my songs get covered by, a country artist, that's great too. It doesn't have to be necessarily within the alt-rock genre, but that's just kind of what has fed me growing up and everything, and so that's the sound that I like to give back, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was younger, I was really into salsa and Latin, and then later on I was into opera, and now I kind of love alternative rock myself. I kind of don't like pop or classical rock. I like kind of the alternative sounds, and at different times of your life you can have different flavors depending on where you are in your life. Yeah. Now, what brought you, because I saw you're a mental health advocate. Why did you go there? What is that significant for you in supporting that?
Well, when I was 16, I came down with major depression and OCD and a few other things as well. And it had me down and out for a good at least 3 years. When I started to kind of come out of it and everything, I realized that part of it was I was able to do it because I had a good support system. My family, I had good doctors, but I realized there were a lot of people that didn't. So, and I think just one of the ways in which to kind of give back is just to, when I can, speak about it and be open about it, and letting people know that they're not alone, whether you're 12, 16, or 35 or 50. Sometimes mental illness can strike at any age. I don't mean for that to sound spooky. I just think it's a reality. It just kind of, people just need to be more accepting of when people are having a more than just a bad day. Even bad days, but just when people are really struggling, it's not just, pick yourself up by the bootstraps. You've got to learn how to assess things differently and do things differently, and you learn about yourself in the process. So in some ways it can be a blessing in disguise when you go through that process, but it's also just something that at the basic level needs to be more accepted, and just people need to know they can reach out to other people, and people will accept them.
And there's nothing wrong with it either. I mean, different.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, totally. When I was a kid, we have abuse in our family household, and my siblings went to deal with it differently. Some went to dealing with it in a way that was not so healthy. But what saved my saving grace was actually music, because I got into it so young that I would go home and just get out with my violin and go nuts, and that was a way for me to deal with it. But some people don't have that. They don't have music. They don't have a support system. And you're a kid at home who's, struggling or whatever, or maybe even a young 20-year-old who's living on your own, and you can't, you're having difficulty with bills. I mean, there are times whenever part of your life where you're struggling, and if you don't have that support system, it behooves us all to really think about your neighbor that way. So it's great that you were able to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can see it all around, and everyone has their story. So it's one of those things where it's hard you can't judge a book by its cover. You just gotta, it really comes to what you said, just kind of being there for your neighbor and everything. And that's why music is such a good thing at a young age, even if it doesn't transpire into a career. Having either music or athletics or some type of outlet. But the only problem is today a lot of art programs are being cut from schools, and so it's just one of those things that that's as important as any subjects in school, if not more so.
More so,
and,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it needs to not happen. It's more than just the music.
I don't think they get it, because for me, music gives me so much more than just playing an instrument. I mean, I got focus from it, super focused. Right now, I can go anywhere and super get into my work and be focused. Discipline, it gave me discipline. And in music, you have to use mathematical skills, to read. I mean, there's no part of everyday life that you don't have to use within using music or the art.
Right, yeah.
So, really, you're right. It really behooves the whole educational system to really understand that it's important for a developmental process of children to have that outlet, either sports or arts, to be able to incorporate that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just comes down to test scores. It's hard to test for music against other, and I think that's just really what it comes down to, is they're not seeing how important it is for the individual, to express themselves and learn how to do that and whatnot, and whether it be through music or any other type of program or whatnot. That's vital, in my opinion, to at least be exposed to it enough to where you can get into it if it's something that you want to do. And like you said with your story, it was your outlet, and it taught you so much about life and everything, and every kid should be allowed to have access to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going through your own experiences with depression and such, did it really open your eyes to seeing people struggling around you? Because I know it did for me as a younger person, being able to go through experiences. I'd be able to actually empathize and pay attention and notice people around me who might be struggling. Did it help you in that area as well?
Totally did. It opened my eyes to a level where 14, 15, 16, you're just still getting used to the world around you and everything. And so sometimes trying to figure things out and whatnot. I was a pretty accepting person, I'd say, beforehand, but I did have my walls, in a sense, that when I realized that the only thing that matters is just really caring for each other, those walls will come down. And sometimes you got to learn it the hard way. What it did was told me that just because the person might look different or might have different views in whatever level they might be, religious or political or whatnot, they're still a person. They're just like me. They're just like you and everything. And so it really, really opened up that awareness to see people as they are. So much what maybe I first perceived
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it helped a lot with that.
Yeah, and that's so important right now. I mean, right now, you just mentioned politically, people have been so mean to each other politically, and I'm like, dudes, this will come and go. We have elections every 4 to 2 years, depending if you're voting for a council or mayor or president. And some people are outing their family members and their friends. I'm like, dude,
yeah.
This is ridiculous. Come on. This is your neighbor here. We're all We're all Americans. Let's get real. So that's something really, really important to remember. But let me ask you, JJ, through the building of your business as a musician, has there been any times that you struggled and it was difficult, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, there were coming out of college and everything. I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I knew this was what I was supposed to do. And you're kind of given no roadmap to how to do it. You just got to kind of go and figure it out. And so there were quite a number of years in which I was making music, but just not seeing any, and not so much financial, but just not seeing any progress, and whatnot. And I was fulfilled in making the music. But it was like, I know I'm supposed to get this out there. How do I do that? And what always kind of worked for me was just, you learn perseverance doing that, and you can do that in a number of ways. Sometimes I meditate, pray, talk with, people. My mom is a big support system for me. She was very encouraging. Would have some people, or at least hint that, you should just find a regular job and be happy with that. I'm just like, no, I can't. There's no chance. And, and there's nothing wrong with that if someone can find that to make them happy. I just know in my case, it's just not the deal. And so it was hard for a number of years, and getting through it, you just got to kind of find your own inner perseverance. However it is you do that, it'll come. If you feel it in your heart that it's what you're supposed to do, a way will open up for you to keep going, and eventually doors will start opening, and that's in my case what happened. So
that's such an important lesson, JJ, that you mentioned, because I came out of the box when I first, once I discovered what my passion and purpose was, I was like, okay, this is going to be easy breezy, right? And it wasn't easy breezy. But looking at every single company or business or person who's become successful, when you look at their background, it wasn't like they just woke up one day and bam, they hit gold. It was like years of hard work and perseverance before, bam, now you see the end result. But see, all they show you usually on TV when they show you bios and stuff, the end result, they don't show you all the bits in between. So there's a lot of in between that people don't pay attention to. But it's good to see that, to keep on hearing your stories and others, to know that if you keep with perseverance and you're focused to your goal, that one day you can reach your dream life and living the life you want. Yeah. Well, this has been fabulous. I don't want anyone to leave here without finding out how they can listen to your awesome music, find out more about you. Let them know that.
You can find me at jjmcguiganmusic.com. It's just JJMCGUIGAN music.com. You can download any of the songs. You can pay your own price. You can also get a hold of my music on Amazon or iTunes. I'm on Twitter at JJ Music, and shoot me a message or whatnot. And you can get a hold of me on my website just by sending me a message and everything. And I like to think my music can help people a lot, just because this might sound kind of technical, but it's recorded and people can take it and just listen to it over and over and over and whatnot. And that's what I've done with music, is just I've done it that way. But people can get a hold of me on the website or on Twitter, Facebook, JJ McGuigan. But so if anyone feels like they want to send me a message about anything, feel free to on any of those sites.
Wow, that's an amazing thing about music today, especially the digital age, that it's so easy and accessible to share. What on the negative side of that is that people can easily grab music that they shouldn't be taking. But on the other hand, the digital age has allowed more people to experience and to have music in their life. Imagine 100 years ago when you didn't have any way to record it, and it was kind of you had to go to a symphony or something, and maybe poor people or people who didn't have the resources couldn't have that experience in their life. So it's awesome that almost everyone can. So that's fabulous.
I wouldn't have made it during that time.
Yeah, me either. Well, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much, JJ, for coming to share your gifts and wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you very much. This has been a blast. Thank you.
You.